Chapter 801. Great Divinity Incarceration Rune. In the sinful barren lands of divine essence, there was an abandoned cultivation planet. More accurately speaking, this was not a complete cultivation planet, but one of its fragmented pieces after that planet had collapsed at some point in time. It might have shattered 10,000 years ago, or it could have shattered a much longer time ago, when the four great true worlds fought against the fifth true world. Whenever this had happened, a fragmented piece had come to be after the planet collapsed. It was larger than a common meteor. Perhaps some time later, it would fall apart and join the meteors that floated by their lonesome in the galaxy. However, right then, this was yet to happen. Su Ming sat on the fragmented piece from the planet that had shattered an unknown number of years ago. There were no signs of life on it, and neither were there any cultivators. It was like a broken world where all manner of living had become still and silent. Su Ming had been meditating there for 3 days. He knew that time was precious. He knew that the possibility of him being discovered at any moment lurked around due to the four great true worlds chasing after him and the greed of the cultivators in the barren lands. That was why every single time he chose a place to heal his wounds, he would only stay in that spot for at most 3 days before he immediately changed his location. Su Ming opened his eyes after a moment, and a hint of fatigue lay in his eyes. He lowered his head and unrobed himself. He looked at the slightly fainter mark of the sword on his chest. In silence, he averted his gaze and lifted his head to look at the sky. 100 world stones, huh? His lips curled up into a cold smirk. There were 2 corpses lying in front of him. Both were thin and dry. These were the 2 cultivators that Su Ming had run into 3 days ago in this place. He had originally decided to leave and avoid them, but those 2 cultivators had discovered his identity and chosen to try and obtain the rewards. One of them then tried to hold him back while the other swiftly retreated in an attempt to call for backup. Su Ming stood up. He lifted his right hand and swung his arm. Immediately, those 2 corpses turned into ashes and disappeared. He took a step towards the galaxy. When he was in space, red immediately shone, and red threads surrounded his body. Once they turned into a red coffin, it charged away with a loud whoosh. Almost at the moment Su Ming left the broken, fragmented piece and flew away, his eyes shone while he was in the coffin. This time, it was 5 days. Su Ming could sense a wisp of his presence he had left 5 days ago on a meteor. This meant that the meteor was destroyed, and it meant that someone had found that meteor while searching for him. Something's not right. Last time, they needed 7 days to discover the presence I left behind. Su Ming frowned. Duke of Crimson Flame, is the secret art you cast on me still around? Su Ming sent that question with his mind. It's still around. As long as your enemies aren't too close to you, it'll be difficult for them to discover you. Your presence will remain in a single spot for 7 days, and it also means that when they discover you, what they see will be the spot where you were 7 days ago. This secret art is almost akin to twisting time and space. If I cast it on someone else, it would not bring about too much effect. But since you're an abyss builder and your inborn talent is controlling time and space itself, that's why such an effect was brought about, the Duke of Crimson Flame said calmly. Su Ming fell silent. As he pondered over this quietly, he kept this problem in his heart. The red coffin charged through the galaxy and disappeared without a trace. 3 days later, the coffin suddenly stopped, and a freezing glare appeared in Su Ming's eyes. As I thought, the presence I left behind on that fragmented piece has also disappeared. It's only been 3 days since then. Su Ming's face was dark. The coffin where he was immediately melted. He walked out from the coffin and stood in the galaxy. He looked in the direction of the fragmented piece with brightly shining eyes. They should have other methods to locate me besides that blood identification pearl. The secret art worked previously because they had yet to execute this new method of locating me. Now, the time taken to find me is being rapidly cut short. Before long, they'll be able to avoid that span of 7 days where time and space is distorted and be able to locate me instantly. A chilling glare appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He knew that if he was constantly in a state of being locked on, he would forever be in a state of being pursued. I'm also slightly curious. The secret art hasn't lost its effect. By right, nothing should go wrong, but why do they have a method to cut down the time where time and space is distorted? The Duke of Crimson Flame's puzzled voice echoed in Su Ming's ears. What is the distance between us and Black Ink Planet? Su Ming asked after being silent for a short while. Over the course of the journey, he had been hurrying forward whenever he was not curing his injuries. His destination was Black Ink Planet. Only by leaving this place and stepping into Divine Essence Star Ocean could he shake off the 4 great true worlds coverage of the galaxy and no longer be constantly on the run like right now. I can still shift you twice, but only twice. You will have to wait for 100 years before I'll be able to gather enough power to shift you again. However, even if we shift, there is still a limit. It'll be difficult for us to reach Black Ink Planet within a short period of time. Based on my calculations, after I shift twice, you will still need 70-something years of flight before you could reach that planet, the Duke of Crimson Flame said in a low voice. Su Ming frowned and swept his gaze across the area. I must find what method they're using to locate me besides that blood identification pearl. At that moment there were 9 ancient bronze swords charging through the galaxy from a spot a considerable amount of distance away from Su Ming. At the tip of the ancient swords was an illusory projection. There was a blood-red circle in that projection. It looked like a rune, but if someone enlarged it several millions-fold, then they would be able to see clearly that the lines that constructed this circular rune were countless runic symbols packed densely together. That circular rune shone once every 7 breaths. Each time it shone, numerous white spots would appear on it. Those white spots would either be scattered or gathered closely to each other. They concentrated in different spots of the rune. Besides them, there was a crimson-red spot that was incredibly eye-catching. That glowing spot had been moving swiftly, but it had stopped at that moment. HMPH, just to kill this person, the 4 great true worlds actually agreed to use the Great Divinity Incarceration Rune. All the people who are within this rune will have no place to hide. But this Mo Su is pretty good. He's actually skilled in a rune that can distort time and space, causing us to always be late by 7 days while we've been chased after him these past few months. If we didn't activate this Great Divinity Incarceration Rune, it would have been slightly more difficult for us to know where he is. There were many true guards standing on the huge swords. Their gazes were on the red spot on that illusory projection. With just one more day, we'll be able to break that method he uses to distort time and space. By then, this Mo Su will have nowhere to hide. Judging by the direction he's going, he should be heading towards Black Ink Planet. But it's located incredibly far away from this place. He'll need some 200 years to get there, and he won't survive for that long. As those true guards sent their thoughts to each other, the 9 ancient bronze swords sliced through the air, charging swiftly into the distance. Just what method are they using? A long arc charged through the galaxy. It was a red coffin. Su Ming was sitting cross-legged on it. His face was dark. A myriad of thoughts fleeted through his mind as he continued analyzing the situation and deducing what was going on, with his thoughts forming together as if they were raw silk and he was spinning them together into a cocoon. It's a pity that I lost my consciousness and was sealed near the end of the battle. I don't know what the 4 great true worlds had placed in this galaxy over the years. Even after I absorbed Jing Nanzi's memories, I only know the general outline of things, not the details. After all, even with Jing Nanzi's status, it was difficult for him to know the secrets that lay at the core of the 4 great true worlds. The Duke of Crimson Flame was also thinking about this. After a moment, he sighed. Oh well, I'll keep 1 shift on standby. I'll use it when you're close to Black Ink Planet. After all, they should be able to guess where you're going. They will definitely lock down the area around. I'll need to shift you to pass through that lock and step into Black Ink Planet. Besides keeping the amount of power needed for 1 shift, you still have 1 more shift left. I can use it to help you temporarily shake off your pursuers, the Duke of Crimson Flame said in a low voice. It's useless. Even if I manage to shift farther away, if I don't find the method they're using to locate me besides that blood identification pearl, then even if I buy some time, I'll still be chased down eventually. Su Ming shook his head. Time was trickling by, and a sense of danger was rapidly rising in his heart. If this continued, then Su Ming was certain that in a few days, he would once again face off a large-scale pursuit. When he thought of the sword aura that destroyed Heavenly Treasure Planet, his pupils shrank. That power was definitely not something that he could withstand. If he took that blow head-on, then even if his physical body was powerful, his body and soul would definitely be destroyed. Just what is it? As Su Ming mumbled, he lifted his head and looked at the endless galaxy above his head. Every single time he looked at it, he would feel that the universe was boundless, and he was an incredibly weak existence. After a long while, Su Ming sighed. Just as he was about to lower his head, a shudder suddenly ran through his body. He stood up and stared at the galaxy up ahead. Could there be an eye in the galaxy that can look at all regions attentively as if it was monitoring them, and no one can escape from its gaze? Su Ming mumbled. I don't know whether there would be this sort of eye, but when you said that, I remember something now. There are certain gigantic runes that can cover a galaxy and do what you said. All manner of lives under that rune would be monitored. The bald Duke of Crimson Flame manifested beside Su Ming's body and lifted his head to look at the sky with a grim expression. I remember now. Jing Nanzi once executed a method to seal something. At that time, his presence was incredibly great. I could even feel a wave of power descending from the galaxy and sealing off the region based on Jing Nanzi's thoughts. Su Ming's eyes shone, and a brilliant light was revealed within them. The Duke of Crimson Flame's heart shuddered and he immediately said, "A rune, there is an incredibly gigantic rune in the galaxy. This rune is monitoring the galaxy, and it can see everything that is happening in all of the corners. Then the reason must definitely be this rune. Only by using this method can they avoid the power that distorts time and space and also dodge those misleading presences that last for 7 days, because this rune can instantly find me and locate me immediately." Su Ming glared at the sky above him, and madness gradually appeared in his eyes. Bald crane. Su Ming swung his arm, and the bald crane immediately flew out from his storage bag. Once it manifested beside him, it immediately glared at the Duke of Crimson Flame. It did not dare provoke Su Ming, but somewhere in the depths of its heart, it thought that it could bully this bald man. Su Ming looked at the bald crane and immediately asked, "Can you break this rune that monitors the galaxy?" The bald crane was momentarily stunned. After it looked at the area, it lifted its head to look at the galaxy. Then, without any hesitation, it shook its head vigorously. "No can do, this rune." Before it finished speaking, Su Ming threw out a bag. Once the bald crane caught and opened it, its eyes immediately started shining brilliantly. "Break the rune, and I'll give all of it to you," Su Ming said decisively. The bald crane shuddered and screamed in excitement. "I'll do it. I can do it. Damn it all, even if I use up every last ounce of my strength, I'll deal with this stupid rune. I'll do whatever it takes." Chapter 802, Breaking the Rune. As the bald crane screamed in excitement, it seized that bag in a tight grip. There were numerous crystals in there, and many of them were not inferior ones. They were instead stone coins with incredibly high quality, which Su Ming had obtained in Yin Death region. These sparkling things were the bald crane's life. In fact, they were even more important than its life. This was the source that could make it fight and descend into madness. When Su Ming brought out another storage bag and tossed it to the bald crane in a decisive manner, the bald crane's originally excited heart instantly exploded with a myriad of emotions. "I'll do whatever it takes. I'll do it. I'll do it." The bald crane's eyes even turned red as it roared. "Darn it all, I'll give it my all for these crystals. If an animal can die for food, then I will die for money. That little boy Su has never been so generous before. He's even more miserly than I am, and he's being so generous now. I definitely can't miss this chance." The bald crane roared and leapt up to charge towards the galaxy up ahead. "I'll give it my all." A loud bang erupted from the bald crane's body, and it increased several times in size, turning several hundreds of feet big. An endless amount of ripples appeared around it. Those ripples spread out swiftly, as if they were about to fuse into the galaxy. Su Ming looked at the bald crane. He had never seen a rune that the bald crane could not break. He had only seen this sort of talent in Huzi before, and when he looked at the bald crane, he felt a stab of pain. This was not physical pain. Perhaps more accurately speaking, this was not pain, but a sort of numbness that was born as he recalled past events. Su Ming knew that he was remembering Huzi, but this sort of remembrance was not allowed for him, who no longer had any emotions, and neither did he have any pain. By the side, the Duke of Crimson Flame looked at the bald crane entering a frenzy with a dumbfounded look. He had seen avaricious people, but he had never seen anyone so avaricious that they would explode forth with such great life force just for 2 bags of crystals. Judging by the looks of it, the bald crane was clearly in an extreme state of excitement. It can't be. It can't, that legendary being, right? I remember that lord didn't seem to be so greedy for money. Besides, with its status, these crystals. The Duke of Crimson Flame had always been uncertain about the bald crane. This was his secret, and he had not even asked Su Ming about it. Ah! The bald crane shouted loudly. It swelled up once again and became nearly 1,000 feet big. The ripples around it became even finer. As it continued expanding, it filled the entire galaxy with ripples. They did not spread too far, but instead swept through the area. It was as if the bald crane wanted to use this method to fuse with the galaxy. However, it was as if there were no cracks here, so the ripples could only swirl about, but never be able to fuse with the galaxy. Almost at the moment the bald crane demonstrated its power in an attempt to break the rune that had existed for an unknown number of years, having been placed by the powerful warriors from the 4 true great worlds working together to cover the entire galaxy in the barren lands of divine essence except for the depths. 4 of the 19 radix planets in the galaxy used by the 4 great true worlds as their stations instantly erupted with a powerful light. A cold and emotionless voice came from the 4 radix planets. There is a 3rd-tier power attempting to fuse with the great divinity incarceration rune in Western Ring Nebula, sinful barren lands. This power will require 970 million years to succeed in fusing with the rune. That aloof voice spread through all areas of the 4 great true worlds, keeping a lookout over the barren lands. It was immediately heard by the true guards on the cultivation planets and the powerful warriors from the 4 great true worlds. However, no one paid any attention to it. Only some would occasionally lift their heads to look at the sky. This sort of act to break the rune was not common, but not rare either. Over the years, no one had ever successfully fused with it and broken the great divinity incarceration rune. In the eyes of true guards, this sort of action was an act of someone overestimating their own abilities. Yet at that moment, the aloof voice suddenly came from the 4 shining radix planets once again. There is a 4th-tier power attempting to fuse with the great divinity incarceration rune in Western Ring Nebula, sinful barren lands. This power will require 720 million years to succeed in fusing into the rune. That 4th-tier power appeared so soon? But it's completely impossible to break this rune. I wonder which overconfident idiot is trying it. Is Western Ring Nebula where that wanted criminal Mo Su is? Within the endless cultivation planets in the vast galaxy where the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds kept a lookout over the barren lands were some true guards who were training. Their training was interrupted by the voice that spread through the entire galaxy, but most of them did not pay any attention to it. Su Ming looked at the bald crane in the galaxy as he stood in Western Ring Nebula. At that moment, the bald crane's body swelled up to several thousands of feet. Roars tumbled out from its mouth, and a large amount of ripples reverberated without stop in that circular area of 10,000 lees. Damn it, what is this rune? How could it be so powerful? Darn it all, why is a stupid rune so powerful? Isn't this just cheating? The bald crane started cursing loudly. Yet soon, the bald crane's curses fell silent, and it was replaced by heavy breathing. It might be in the galaxy, but the bald crane's breathing still quickened. Because when Su Ming lifted his hand, he threw out 2 more storage bags. The bald crane's eyes turned red, and it descended into madness. As it roared at the sky, its body swelled up once again, and this time, it reached 10,000 feet. As it roared, ripples that looked like surging waves spread out from its body and swept through the area. When the Duke of Crimson Flame saw this scene, his pupils constricted. Darn it all, I'm going to duke it out against you. I'll do it for real this time. I'll seriously duke it out. As the bald crane howled, it blinked, then lowered its head to swiftly sweep a glance at Su Ming. When it saw Su Ming taking out another storage bag, the bald crane went mad. Su Ming might not have much of everything else, but as he killed, he never let any storage bag slip through his hands. There might be some that only had few items, but when their numbers accumulated, he still obtained quite the fortune. When the bald crane had an outburst, there was no longer just 4 radix planets shining in the galaxy where the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds kept a lookout over the barren lands. Instead, brilliant light now shone from 5 of those radix planets that formed a distorted-looking staircase, which was part of the celestial body that was formed by many cultivation planets. There is a 5th-tier power attempting to fuse with the great divinity incarceration rune in Western Ring Nebula, sinful barren lands. Before that voice could finish its speech, it suddenly stopped talking. Soon after, when it reverberated in the air once again, its words had already changed. There is a 6th-tier power attempting to fuse with the great divinity incarceration rune in Western Ring Nebula, sinful. The voice stopped once again. After a moment, when it echoed in space once more, nearly half of the true guards in all the cultivation planets within the galaxy where the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds kept a lookout over the barren lands spotted changes in their expressions. There is a 7th-tier power attempting to fuse with the great divinity incarceration rune in Western Ring Nebula, sinful barren lands. This power will require 95 million years to succeed in fusing with the rune. The bald crane's body grew to be several tens of thousands of feet big. The ripples spreading out from its body covered several hundreds of thousands of lees. Its entire body trembled, and its eyes were crimson red. Damn it! Damn it all! This is the most insane rune I've ever seen in my life. It has 900,000 something layers. Darn it, how am I supposed to break this? As the bald crane spoke, it quickly lowered its head to look at Su Ming before quickly putting on a facade that it was panting harshly. Su Ming let out a harumph. When he lifted his right hand, 5 storage bags were immediately brought out. He shook them before the bald crane, and the mouths of the bags fell open. Once the sounds of crystals knocking into each other came from within, he tossed them aside to a spot, where there were already 20-something storage bags. The bald crane's heart was filled with ecstatic glee. In its excitement, it looked as if it was motivated once again. Its body increased in size with a bang and grew straight to 100,000 feet. The galaxy was filled with ripples spreading out from its body. These ripples quickly swam around, and for the first time, they showed signs that they were about to fuse with the galaxy. Oh no! I've really done my best, but this rune is just too powerful, too insane. When Su Ming was not paying attention, the bald crane licked its beak and immediately cried out. Without saying another word, Su Ming brought out another 10 storage bags. Once he revealed the crystals inside, he tossed them aside. The bald crane shuddered and let out a roar towards the sky. It became nearly 200,000 feet tall. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He brought out another few storage bags and tossed them aside. A brilliant light shone in the bald crane's eyes, and it started crying out in excitement in its heart. I'm rich. I'm rich. Ha ha. Little boy Su, aren't you supposed to be miserly? Heh heh, I just need to use some tricks, and you'll still end up bringing them all out in the end. He might still have some. Yup, I'll continue squeezing his money out of him. As the bald crane cried out, its body swelled up once again. This time, it reached nearly 300,000 feet. Wherever those ripples passed by, the galaxy would shine intensely. The Duke of Crimson Flame's mouth had already fallen open in complete shock. He looked at the bald crane with a dumbfounded expression, the shock in his heart having turned into amazement. It's fighting against the rune that seals an entire galaxy head-on. This crane, is it truly that legendary lord? Once its body grew to 300,000 feet, the bald crane started wailing again. Oh, I can't do it anymore. I've already done my best, but this thing is just too hard to break. I need motivation, I need to be filled with passion, I need stimulation. As it spoke, it lowered its head and looked at Su Ming with excitement and anticipation. If you need stimulation, then I'll give you stimulation. Su Ming let out a cold harumph, then lifted his right hand and seized the air. Immediately, 3 of the 30-something storage bags flew out, and Su Ming seized them. I will give you the span of 10 breaths. With each breath that passes, I will take back 3 of those storage bags. If you really can't break it, then don't force yourself. As Su Ming spoke flatly, he put away those 3 bags. A piercing scream of pain tumbled out from the bald crane's beak. This time, its eyes were truly bloodshot. All the previous times its eyes turned red was because it intentionally made it so. Its heart was bleeding, and that extreme pain now caused it to truly descend into madness. When it saw Su Ming lifting his hand once again to take back another 3 storage bags, there was pure madness within the bald crane's shrieks. Get bigger, bigger, bigger. Darn it all, get bigger. With a bang, the bald crane's body exploded in size, and it grew to 400,000 feet, 500,000 feet, until it reached 1,000,000 feet. Break! 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 As it cried out, the ripples around it started spreading out viciously. Wherever they passed by, the galaxy looked as if it was about to shatter. As a shocking boom rang out, layers upon layers of the galaxy were pulled back. A gigantic crimson-red rune that exuded an ancient presence replaced the galaxy, and it appeared before Su Ming's eyes with no end in sight. At that moment, all the ripples fused into the crimson rune. A shocking bang that shook the galaxy came from the rune, and the bald crane, completely fused with this great divinity incarceration rune that the 4 great true worlds had set up in the past. Chapter 803. Divine Space World within the galaxy where the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds kept a lookout over the barren lands were 6 radix planets with distorted forms that made them look like staircases. At the instant they started shining with a brilliant light, and that light illuminated everything around. 6 aloof voices speaking in unison came from the 6 radix planets. There is an 8th tier power attempting to fuse with the great divinity incarceration rune in Western Ring Nebula, within. There is a 9th tier power attempting to fuse with the great divinity incarceration rune in Western Ring Nebula. There is a 10th tier power attempting to fuse with the great divinity incarceration rune in Western Ring. There is an 11th tier power attempting to fuse with the great divinity incarceration rune in. Those voices echoed in many cultivation planets, causing all the true guards within the area that belong to the forces of power within the 4 great true worlds to find their expressions changing. Multiple presences exploded forth, and long arcs flew up from these cultivation planets. Yet at that moment, 9 of the 19 radix planets that filled the galaxy used by the 4 great true worlds erupted forth with a powerful light. Once that light appeared, the aloof voice changed its words. The great divinity incarceration rune is in danger. Based on the divine essence law made by the 4 great true worlds, all guards from the true worlds are to immediately head to the place where the cause of the danger lies. You are to destroy all living beings that are attempting to break the rune. The danger of this power is 13th tier, which will need 23,000 years to break the rune. Loud buzzing sounds came from the galaxy which the 4 great true worlds used as a lookout over the barren lands once that aloof voice spread out. Long arcs charged into the air. Ancient bronze swords appeared in the region where true sacred Yin world were stationed. Anyone who looked would see that there were several hundreds of them, nearing 1,000. There were even a few presences in plain Kalpa realm. Their powerful divine senses caused the galaxy to tremble. Abyss dragons roared in the galaxy where the Emperor of Abyss True World was stationed. Figures in black armor appeared on all the Abyss dragons as black smoke spread out from their bodies. A similar sight appeared in the galaxy where True Morning Dao World was stationed as well. All the galaxies where the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds were stationed trembled due to the aloof voice. Are the alien races invading us? If not, what sort of power could possibly make 9 radix planets light up at the same time? Could it be that the alien races are really invading us en masse? Or else how could they possibly be able to shake the great divinity incarceration rune? Is war coming? Multiple questions rose in the hearts of the true guards from the 4 great true worlds, and it became a heavy burden on them. Almost at the moment the area where the forces of power from the 4 great true worlds trembled violently, 15 of the 19 radix planets began to shine brilliantly. This meant that a shocking change had appeared in the barren lands of divine essence. The power endangering the rune is at the 15th tier. It will require 6,200 years to break the rune. The power endangering the rune is at the 16th tier. It will require 1,500 years to break the rune. The power endangering the rune is at the 17th tier. It will require 300 years to break the rune. The power endangering the rune is at the 18th tier. It will require 5 years to break the rune. The power endangering the rune is at the 19th tier. It will require 10 breaths to break the rune. The aloof voice coming from the 15 radix planets swiftly spread through space, echoing all around. However, before the true guards from the 4 great true worlds could even relocate, the aloof voice fell silent. Several breaths later, when it spoke up once again, the words it uttered caused the minds of all people in the galaxy to rumble. The great divinity incarceration rune has been broken. 2/10 of the perception from the rune have been lost. As that voice spoke, the area where the 4 great true worlds were stationed instantly fell into dead silence. In Western Ring Nebula, which was located in sinful barren lands, the bald crane's crazed laughter traveled all around, and there was an endless amount of prideful arrogance contained within that laughter. Well, darn it all. How was that? Weren't you still defeated by me? Ha ha. Your Grandpa Crane is invincible. No matter what rune it is still just crystals before me, it can't escape. Loud booming sounds echoed in the galaxy, spreading in all directions to cover the crimson rune. The bald crane's body manifested in space. It looked as if it had fused together with the rune and they could no longer be distinguished from each other. The Duke of Crimson Flame looked at that sight with a dumbfounded expression. After some time, his heart started trembling violently. At that moment, he was certain by 8/10 that the bald crane was that Lord spoken in the legends in the past. A smile appeared on Su Ming's face. He swung his arm, and all the storage bags in front of him flew up together to charge up. A suction force immediately came from the crimson rune, and those storage bags disappeared without a trace once they were all swept up. The bald crane's excited and smug laughter rang all around once again. Little boy Su, so? Aren't I just great? Heh heh. This stupid rune is too weak. I've broken runes that are 10 times stronger than this one. When have I broken a rune that is 10 times stronger than this one? Light shone within the crimson rune. The bald crane's body manifested, and it came to stand before Su Ming with a smug expression on its face. It no longer thought about the thing it could not remember from the past. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes, and he said calmly, "Control this rune and cover up its gaze on me. Make it so that no one else can use this rune to find out where I am." No problem. I've already fused with this stupid rune. If it doesn't listen to me, then I'll get rid of it. The bald crane struck its chest with an incredibly arrogant look on its face. Ahem, little boy Su, you know, we could actually make a few more deals. Hey, about that, I saw that you took away some storage bags just now. How about this? Give me the crystals in the storage bags, and I'll use the power in the rune and help you perform a short distance warp. The bald crane licked its beak, and an expectant light shone in its eyes as it looked at Su Ming. What is this rune? A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes as he asked flatly. This rune is known as the Great Divinity Incarceration and Sealing Rune. It covers the entire galaxy where the 4 great true worlds are stationed as well as sinful barren lands. It also has a part called Great Space Sealing and Planet Shrinking Rune, Space Sealing Rune for short. It's the protective gate guarding the region where the 4 great true worlds are stationed. It'll be difficult for all those who are not protected by this rune to step into the region where the 4 great true worlds are stationed to a lookout over the barren lands. When these 2 runes are grouped together, they will form Divine Space's first rune in the barren lands of Divine Essence. The bald crane quickly explained, afraid that Su Ming would not agree to the trade. To it, runes were not important. What was important were crystals. It's actually the Divine Space rune. The Duke of Crimson Flame was shocked when he heard it by the side, and in his shock, he had cried out in surprise. When Su Ming looked towards him, a grim expression appeared on the Duke of Crimson Flame's face. A hint of nostalgia entered his eyes, and at the same time, there was also a hint of terror there. Before I was sealed, I experienced the might of the Divine Space rune set up by the 4 great true worlds. This rune has infinite power. It possesses a law. Calling it a rune might not be too appropriate. It's more like a galaxy, the Duke of Crimson Flame said in a low voice. Su Ming's eyes sparkled. He waited quietly for the Duke of Crimson Flame to continue speaking. Wherever it is, it can replace the existing galaxy and envelop it in the rune that belongs to it, turning it into Divine Space World. This rune killed many of the people from the fifth true world in the past. Up to the moment I was sealed, I didn't hear of it being destroyed. Within its divine space world, it will form its own galaxy with rules and laws. It doesn't need any cultivator to control it either, because a rune spirit has already been born in the rune. However, all those who are acknowledged by the rune spirit can use the power of the rune to kill their enemies in divine space world. I didn't expect that the rune would still be around, and it actually executed the divine space rune to cover half of the barren lands of divine essence. All the regions besides divine essence star ocean might belong to the area of divine space world. The Duke of Crimson Flame looked at the boundless blood-red rune in the galaxy. There was a solemn tone to his words, along with a deep wave of wariness. In fact, he even instinctively cast a glance at the bald crane as he remembered those rumors from the past. "There's a rune spirit?"
No.
"I don't see any rune spirit." The bald crane was momentarily stunned. It closed its eyes and sensed the area of the rune carefully before it shook its head. "But this rune isn't complete. It seems like it was destroyed in the past, and then it was separated into two parts, one that seals divinities, and the other that seals spaces. Still, this divinity incarceration rune that I've fused with does possess the divine ability you speak of. It formed a galaxy, but the power doesn't feel as terrifying as you said. Besides, most of it can't be brought out." The bald crane scratched its bald head, then cast its gaze at Su Ming once again with eyes filled with expectation. "Its power might be much weaker, but performing short-distance warps is incredibly easy for it. So, little boy Su, you wanna have a deal?" As the bald crane spoke, the Duke of Crimson Flame was stunned for an instant. After a moment of pensive silence, he seemed to have come to understand the situation. No wonder the four great true worlds couldn't use the power of the rune to chase us down. They also needed a large amount of cultivators as true guards, because this rune no longer has a rune spirit. It's difficult for everyone to obtain the rune's acknowledgement, and even then they can't execute its full power. They can only use its basic functions while using the rune to monitor and investigate the area. But why didn't the old monsters who set up the rune in the past mend it? As the Duke of Crimson Flame mumbled under his breath, Su Ming's eyes shone brilliantly. "We can make the deal, but besides warping, I want to obtain the rune's acknowledgement. I want to use the power of law controlling this galaxy in the rune." Su Ming looked at the bald crane. He knew that the crane would definitely put on a troubled face and then ask for more crystals, which was why he brought out a few more storage bags and tossed them into space. The bald crane seized the storage bags and checked them with excitement. Once it did so, it instinctively put on a troubled face, but when it saw the dark expression on Su Ming's face, it weighed the pros and cons of the situation in its heart and nodded with a vulgar expression. "I'm going to say this first. Warping isn't a problem, but if you want to use the rune's power, then you will only be able to use a small part of it, since I've only fused with 2/10 of the rune. But don't worry, once I fuse with it even more, then I can lend you even more of the rune's power. In fact, I can even help you train, but the key is, I will need stimulation. Only when I have powerful stimulation will the greatest force of my life erupt forth, and only then would I be able to fuse with the rune even more," the bald crane quickly said. "Bring out the picture of the galaxy here. I want to see just how many people are after my life in this area." Killing intent shone in Su Ming's eyes. The bald crane immediately let out a cry, and an illusory projection that only true guards possessed appeared instantaneously before Su Ming. This illusory projection was like a map. Once it spread out, the area shown within it was incredibly large. All the regions in the barren lands of divine essence besides divine star ocean appeared on the map, even the galaxy which the four great true worlds used as a lookout over the barren lands. If the true guards from the four great true worlds saw this, they would definitely be in great shock. Because if it was them, when they used the divinity incarceration rune, they could only see a part of a region. It was difficult for them to see the whole thing. In fact, even the powerful warriors in Plain Kalpa realm could not make this sort of projection appear from the divinity incarceration rune. At most, they could only summon a fourth of it. Chapter 804. Foreign Land. The illusory projection that appeared before Su Ming was incredibly large. It clearly showed half the shape of the gourd. In fact, Su Ming only needed to cast his gaze on a single spot, and all the people and the objects in that place would immediately emerge in his head. This sort of feeling was as if he was in control of this portion of the galaxy. Every life and every existence in the galaxy could not hide from him, appearing clearly before his eyes. Even with Su Ming's indifference, once he noticed this, his heart trembled, and he showed disbelief. He suddenly came to understand the source of the true Guard's might. Besides their level of cultivation, the most critical factor to their strength was the ability to monitor the entire galaxy. Anyone with this projection could basically be undefeatable. He saw an endless number of white spots, countless stars, the 4 regions within sinful barren lands, the 4 forces of power from the 4 great true worlds that were stationed in the galaxies directly corresponding to the 4 regions. At the same time, he saw the space sealing rune the bald crane spoke of just now. That rune was like a long river that existed between the 4 regions of sinful barren lands and the 4 forces of power from the true world stationed on the other side. He also saw Black Ink Planet. This planet that was at the edge of sinful barren lands was marked as a purplish-red spot, and it was incredibly far away from this place. Once Su Ming swept his gaze past the illusory projection, he noticed several strange places. These places were as red as blood on the projection. When a person looked at it, they would be startled, unable to help but feel a strong sense of danger coming from them. Besides, the rune could only cover these spots, not see into them clearly. When Su Ming cast his gaze at those places, the sense of danger turned into a loud bang in his mind, and a vague, powerful suction force appeared, wanting to devour him. There were 4 such places. They were like seas of blood that filled those spots, and one of them was located in each of the 4 galaxies of sinful barren lands. The closest spot was not that far away from Su Ming. There's a region like this in each of the 4 galaxies. Su Ming forced down the powerful sense of danger in his heart. Once he averted his gaze, that sense of danger naturally disappeared. Those are the foreign lands, the Duke of Crimson Flame said softly after looking at the 4 crimson regions. Su Ming did not immediately reply. Instead, he closed his eyes and searched through the memories of the powerful world paragons he had absorbed through the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole. After a moment, his eyes flew open, and his pupils shrank. The 4 foreign lands. All those who step will almost definitely die. Over the years, the number of people who entered them and returned alive is incredibly low. Even the true guards from the 4 great true worlds avoid those 4 regions and regard them as places that end everything. Including Divine Essence Star Ocean, these places are regarded as the 5 forbidden regions in the barren lands of Divine Essence. This was the answer Su Ming obtained from the memories he absorbed. What are the foreign lands? Su Ming looked towards the Duke of Crimson Flame. Before the 4 great true worlds fought against the 5th true world, this galaxy was known as Divine Essence. It did not belong to either the 4 great true worlds or the 5th true world. It was a boundary, a sort of mysterious region. There were plenty of rumors circulating this galaxy. During that time, several of these foreign lands were already in existence. Plenty of people went to investigate them, but very few came back. All those who came back were unwilling to talk about their experiences in those foreign lands. As time passed, the dangers and mysteries of those places turned into an enigma. This lasted till your Abyss Builder ancestor, who is the 5th true world sovereign, went to investigate a foreign land and came back alive. He might not have talked much about it either, but from then on, the speed at which he increased his level of cultivation was so quick it was terrifying. When he eventually reached the realm where he could control fate, lives, and deaths, he said one sentence: "The foreign lands are the beginning of Divine Essence." Very few know just what are those foreign lands. Even when the 5th true world was at war, the flames of war could not shake their existences. As time had continuously flowed to this day and age, it changed nothing. They still exist, the Duke of Crimson Flame mumbled. He looked at the foreign lands, and his voice seemed to contain an ancient air. It sounded like an old gust of wind blowing forth from the passage of time. Su Ming cast a deep look at the closest foreign land. After some time, he averted his gaze and looked at the other spots on the illusory projection. He saw the main camp of the 4 great true worlds. Over there, the things he saw the most clearly were 19 blue planets, which were scattered in different locations within the 4 great true worlds' main camp. There were numerous cultivation planets there and an innumerable amount of glowing spots that signified the true worlds. There was also a rotating vortex at the peripheral of the four great true worlds main camp. That was the exit from the barren lands of divine essence. It led to the four great true worlds, to true morning Tao world, to yin death region. Master, eldest senior brother, second senior brother, Huzi, berserkers, home. Su Ming looked at the vortex that signified the exit, and as he mumbled, sharp pain stabbed his heart once again. He might have lost his sense of pain, but that force that sealed off his senses only had control over his physical pain. It could not destroy the pain in his heart, which was not physical. After a long while, Su Ming closed his eyes. When he reopened them, the aloof look had returned. When he swept his gaze past the area where the four great true worlds were stationed to a look over the barren lands, a familiar ripple entered his heart. He was stunned for a moment. His gaze fell on one of the true guard's glowing spots, and a picture immediately emerged in his head. Within that picture was a big man with an endless amount of black patterns on his exposed skin. He was dressed in a black robe and was sitting cross-legged on a cultivation planet that was filled with black earth. As he meditated, wisps of black smoke spread out from his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. Venom was contained within that black smoke, causing not only the earth around him to turn black, but also all the plants around to wither and die. Su Ming looked at the picture that emerged in his head and gradually narrowed his eyes. Ji Yun Hai, Su Ming mumbled after a moment. He recognized that person. That man was Ji Yun Hai, the clone he had refined in the past. Madame Ji's appearance in the past had caused Hong Luo to awaken in Su Ming's body. He had brought Su Ming a series of troubles, and at the same time, given him an incredibly huge serendipity. Ji Yun Hai's corpse had then also been refined by Su Ming into a clone. The black beetles in his body allowed that clone to possess incredibly great combat abilities. It was a pity that he had lost his it when he went on his trip to the world of Nine Yin, and up to the moment he left, he hadn't managed to find his missing clone. Yet now, he saw Ji Yun Hai in the barren lands of divine essence, and Su Ming could not help but be stunned by it. Ji Yun Hai is only a clone, the real person having died a long time ago in the past. He was killed by Madame Ji, but judging by his current appearance, it's clear that this clone already possesses intelligence, yet why does he have such dense venom on his person? Su Ming looked at the picture in his head, and the sights from the world of Nine Yin flashed before his eyes. Su Ming had found the poison corpse in the past. Once he brought it out of the world of Nine Yin, he gave it to the fated kin. It became the fated kin's protector, and because of that, Su Ming had a burden lifted off his shoulders. Ji Yun Hai. I couldn't find him in the world of Nine Yin in the past. I thought someone took his away and brought him out of the world of Nine Yin beforehand, but even after I became the god of berserkers and had my Artman sweep through the land of berserkers, I didn't manage to sense his presence. If that is the case, then he wasn't taken away by someone else in the past, but was in the world of Nine Yin, and he left with the ancient bronze sword, to head to true sacred Yin world. Su Ming's eyes sparkled brilliantly as he analyzed the situation. He's become much stronger. He actually reached the level of a Lord of World Plane, or else he wouldn't have been able to become a true guard. Interesting. Su Ming swept his gaze past the projection and instantly found his pupils constricting once again. He could clearly see two other glowing spots on the cultivation planet where Ji Yun Hai was. Zi Long Shen. Li Hua, they're still alive. Su Ming stood up swiftly, and a myriad of emotions flashed past his face. After some time, he started looking through each of the galaxies where the forces of power from the four great true worlds were stationed, and he did so in a large scale. Several hours later, Su Ming's gaze focused on a glowing spot, and his expression was a little complicated. Yi Wang. Su Ming closed his eyes. When he opened them a moment later, he averted his gaze away from the galaxy where the four great true worlds were stationed. Once he found the spot where he was located, he looked at the area around him. Through that illusory projection, Su Ming saw several dozens of glowing spots flying about blindly around him. It was as if they could find his general location and were now just looking for the specific spot. Besides these people were 9 ancient bronze swords that were located in the distance. They were charging forward, but in a manner as if they had lost the location of where Su Ming was. They can't use the rune to locate me from a long distance, so it'll be difficult for them to use the blood identification pearl to notify the others of my position. Because of that, the Duke of Crimson Flame's art that distorts time and space for 7 days will become effective once more, making it so the others will be unable to find precisely where I am. Now, I will use the power of the rune to know where you are. Since you came after my life, then you will have to pay a price for it. Murderous aura spread out from Su Ming's body. When he lifted his right hand, the crimson coffin under his feet melted into a long spear. Once he held it in his hand, the bald crane let out a cry, and ripples immediately spread out from Su Ming's body. A small crimson rune appeared under his feet, and in a flash, Su Ming disappeared. Several dozens of long arcs were exploring the area all around Western Ring Nebula. These people were all stimulated by the 4 Great True Worlds rewards and were desperate cultivators that came to kill Su Ming so that they could obtain the rewards. They cared nothing for death. After all, they no longer had any hope within the barren lands of divine essence. The only desire they had was to make themselves stronger and increase their level of cultivation. That was why it could be said that they eyed these rewards like hungry wolves. However, while the blood identification pearls on their bodies shone, they were leading them to an incredibly far-off place. Yet not too long ago, the blood identification pearls had led them to this region. What's going on? Could it be that this Mo Su used that enchanted treasure of his and shifted into the distance? There was an old man dressed in a blue robe in the galaxy, and he had a dark expression on his face. At that moment, as he moved forward in the form of a long arc, his heart was filled with puzzlement. Just as he was flying forward, his heart suddenly lurched in his chest. When he whipped his head around, he immediately saw a crimson rune appearing in the galaxy not far behind him. There was an indistinct figure in the rune, as if it was covered by ripples on the surface of water. Once it walked out, those ripples vanished to reveal a gray-haired Su Ming. The old man was momentarily stunned. But then his pupils constricted. Killing intent rose in his eyes, along with surprise and bewilderment. He released the presence of World Plane Realm from his entire body without any hesitation. Bang! A blue sea of fog spread out towards the region around him, covering a circular area of several hundreds of thousands of feet. Yet at the instant the sea of fog spread out, Su Ming lifted his right hand and pointed at the old man. Power of the rune, suppress this person, he ordered coldly. Chapter 805. Suppression. As the old man in blue robes spread out his power of world planes, a thought flashed through his mind. Since he walked before me and there is no fear on his face, then he must be confident in killing me, or else he would have definitely not done this, judging by rumors about how cunning and ruthless he's been when he slaughtered those people in Heavenly Treasure Planet. Once he spread out the power of world planes, he lifted his hands, bent his back, and pushed down on the galaxy without any hesitation. The moment he pushed down, a muffled roar came from many different spots within the blue sea of fog that had spread out over hundreds of thousands of feet. A bow from all directions. That voice sounded as if there were tens of thousands of people roaring at the same time. At the instant it echoed in the area, obscure figures instantly appeared within the sea of fog that stretched to several hundreds of thousands of feet. Those figures occupied the area all around, and there were hundreds of thousands of them. There were men and women, the elderly and the young among these people. Their expressions were apathetic, but their eyes were filled with fanatical zeal. Their bodies were illusory, not real, but when they appeared, they lifted their hands, bent their backs, and bowed all together, doing the same posture as the old man in blue robes. Bang! A vast and mighty pressure shook the galaxy. Su Ming immediately sensed a power that was like the might of heaven. It descended on him in an invisible manner, and once it locked down all the spots around him, it turned into a power that tried to flatten him. It was as if a huge hand had appeared around him and wanted to crush him alive. Su Ming let out a cold harumph. As his words of calling the power of the rune echoed in space, a circular crimson rune appeared under his feet. That rune shone brilliantly. It was only about 100 feet in size at the moment it appeared. Yet right away, it started expanding rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, it grew to several tens of thousands of feet. It resisted head on the pressure which was trying to flatten Su Ming from all directions due to that one bow formed from the blue sea of fog by the old man's power of world planes. Bang! 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 Cracks appeared in the galaxy. A furious wave of impact erupted from the void. The blood-red rune under Su Ming's feet swelled up immediately to 300,000 feet, crashing continuously into the sea of fog that was formed from the old man's power of world planes. Boom! 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 The old man's expression changed. His sea of fog fell apart when it crashed into Su Ming's crimson rune. As the fog fell back, it pushed the old man backwards. Once he was forced 10,000 feet away from where he originally was, a grim expression appeared on his face. Su Ming also moved back due to the wave of impact, but he only moved 1,000 feet. The crimson rune was under his feet. He might not be a lord of world planes, but he had the power of the rune. As long as he was in the area of this divinity incarceration rune, which covered the entire galaxy, then he could endlessly borrow the rune's power. With this power in his hands, Su Ming could bring out a power that was similar to world planes. The rune under his feet began flashing rapidly. Red light surged into the area up ahead. Su Ming lifted his head swiftly, formed a seal with his right hand, then swung his arm in the direction before him. The galaxy above his head immediately shuddered, and a circular blood-red rune appeared again. This rune was positioned vertically, like a wall, and with an extreme speed, it charged towards the old man in blue, who was 10,000 feet away from it. As it swiftly closed in, the vertical, circular, crimson rune began expanding non-stop. In the blink of an eye, it grew to 100,000 feet. If anyone looked over there from a distance, it would not be shocking, but if they looked from a close-up, then that 100,000 feet rune would be incredibly huge, and its speed would also be so quick that it could not be described with words. Right away, it closed in on its target. Disbelief appeared in the old man's eyes. He might not have reached the middle stage of world plane realm, but he was already at the peak of the initial stage. He had seen and experienced many things. When he first saw the crimson rune under Su Ming's feet, he had found it somewhat familiar, but he could not remember where he had seen it before. Now that he saw the rune coming straight towards him, a bang erupted in his head, and he remembered. This is impossible. This is the divinity incarceration rune. It's the rune that only the true guards from the 4 great true worlds can mobilize. You are a true guard. This discovery terrified the old man so much that his soul almost left his body. After a myriad of thoughts fleeted through his head, this incredibly absurd notion appeared in his mind. Could it be that this so-called bounty is actually a plot? A plot where the 4 great true worlds want to slaughter us all. But this is... The old man's eyes were bloodshot. He roared loudly, and his clothes puffed up. As the sea of fog that was formed by his power of world planes tumbled behind him, the illusions of the tens of thousands of people manifested behind him, then bowed after wrapping their fists in their palms. Those at the very end started bowing first, and soon, the ones at the front bowed, too. As they bowed in sequence, they looked like waves that eventually surged towards the old man. He wrapped his fist in his palm, then bowed towards the incoming crimson rune. Boom! The space before the old man shuddered, and a shadow that was several hundreds of thousands of big tall appeared. That shadow was not a person, but a pair of hands wrapped together. Those hands belonged to the old man and all the hundreds of thousands of people behind him. Once the shadow appeared, the instant the old man bowed in the direction before him, it immediately crashed into the incoming rune. Bang! 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 The illusory hands shattered inch by inch. As they tumbled backwards, the old man's hair danced wildly, making it seem as if there was a huge gust of wind crashing into his face. The illusions of the tens of thousands of people shattered and dispersed, and the crimson rune swiftly rushed over. Once it closed in, it crashed into the old man, and during that instant, the crimson rune turned into a huge red net that wrapped itself around the old man to suppress him. At the same time, Su Ming's body began rapidly withering away. In the blink of an eye, he turned into countless shards that charged forward, shooting through the net that was the crimson rune. Those shards rushed straight into the old man's body and began absorbing his memories, devouring his power of world planes, and sucking away his physical power. After a moment, once the old man's body disappeared, an endless amount of shards rushed out into the galaxy and gathered there to turn into Su Ming. In the blink of an eye, his body recovered from its withered state. A thick presence of world planes spread out from him, and a brilliant light shone in his eyes. If I absorb one more person's power of world planes, then I will touch the wall separating me from world plane realm. Once the disaster falls on my head and I break through it, my physical body will turn into that of a world paragon. At the same time desire appeared in Su Ming's eyes, he sensed the might of borrowing the power of the rune. It was an overwhelming suppression that did not allow anyone to put up even the slightest bit of resistance. After all, Su Ming could no longer be considered to be the one who attacked during this fight. The one who fought against the old man in blue was not Su Ming, but the divinity incarceration rune that covered the entire galaxy. He might have only used 2/10 of the rune's power, but suppressing a cultivator in the initial stage of World Plane Realm was a piece of cake for the rune. Su Ming slowly clenched his fist, and a feeling of power he had never felt before filled his heart. This might not be his own power, but at this moment, it belonged to him. After Su Ming slowly unfurled his fist and looked at his palm, a bloody battle began in the galaxy. That battle did not last for long, and Su Ming only killed 3 people before he warped and left the place. This was because he had already touched the wall in Heaven Cultivation Realm, separating him from World Plane Realm. The art of swallowing shadows whole had reached a complete state of repletion and could no longer absorb the power of world planes. More importantly, Su Ming could feel that the first disaster from the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole would arrive several days later. He had fought a swift and clean battle against the 3 people. He had a short-distance warping ability by his side which would allow him to arrive at any spot he wanted to be. Even if someone also used a warp to escape, with the illusory projection locating them, Su Ming would still be able to catch up to them. The power of the rune allowed Su Ming to possess a blood-red grid that was akin to the power of world planes, so his weakest attribute when he faced off against lords of world planes was mended completely. He borrowed the might of the divinity incarceration rune for the suppression art and had it sweep through the galaxy. This series of fights were not really fair, since the powerful warriors did not die in Su Ming's hands. They died because of the divinity incarceration rune. Once Su Ming killed those 3 people, he left. He did not appear before the 9 ancient bronze swords. Unless he could borrow more of the rune's power, he would not easily come into contact with the sword aura that could destroy Heavenly Treasure Planet. Several days later, Su Ming was seated on one of the meteors charging through the galaxy in a group. The Duke of Crimson Flame was not too far away. With a solemn expression, he protected Su Ming. The bald crane was lying by the side, occasionally grinning foolishly. Clearly, it was thinking about how its crystal count was going to increase, and was feeling incredibly happy. Su Ming had been sitting there for 3 days. He had chosen a meteor as his isolation grounds because a meteor was constantly on the move, and it was not slow, either. Because of that, his location would be harder to discover with the blood identification pearls. If he was in a single spot that did not move, then the art that distorted time and space for 7 days would no longer be of any use. At that moment, his body was squirming about. Veins popped up on his skin, and runic symbols could be seen flashing faintly, as if they existed within his blood. As his blood circulated through his body, it looked as if there was an endless amount of runic symbols that were shining and swimming about his body. The first disaster in the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole is the disaster of burning flames. Once you get through this disaster, your physical power will experience a great change. You will fuse with the power of world planes and your physical body will become that of a world paragon. However, you will need to search for another clone soon, or else when the second state of repletion comes and the second disaster falls on you, then no matter whether you succeed or fail, your soul will fuse completely with this body of yours, and from then onwards, you will not be able to create another clone. Do remember this, and keep it firmly in your mind. This was the Duke of Crimson Flame's solemn advice before Su Ming isolated himself for the first disaster. Time trickled by. The runic symbols swam faster and faster in Su Ming's body. Faint wisps of flames spread out from all his pores, covering his entire body and burning it. More flames spread out, and gradually, Su Ming's entire body was enveloped in a sea of flames. At the same time Su Ming isolated himself on the meteor to get through the disaster, a notice spread out from through the galaxy from which the 4 great true worlds kept a lookout over the barren lands. This notice shook almost all the cultivators, and it was even forcefully sent into the isolation grounds of the old monsters who isolated themselves all year long. Those who kill Mosu will be given 1,000 world stones and a cultivation planet that has not been laid to waste and still contains a complete essence of the world. Once this notice shook Western Ring Nebula, not only did it make the cultivators in Western Ring Nebula move out, all the other cultivators from the other 3 galaxies rushed to the place as well. The forces of power from the four great true worlds keeping a lookout over the barren lands added the number of true guards from true sacred Yin world that were sent to chase down Su Ming, too. Newcomers such as Zi Longxun, Li Hui, and Ji Yunhai were sent out to search for Mo Su around Western Ring Nebula. True Morning Dao World and the Emperor of Abyss True World also sent out true guards to join in the chase. Besides the always mysterious fourth true world, 3 of the 4 true worlds moved out. A long arc was heading towards the main camp from the galaxy where true sacred Yin world was stationed. There was a young man in that long arc, and he had a dark expression on his face. There was the mark of a peach blossom at the center of his brows. He had received an order and was heading to the main camp to tell the 4 great true generals about this matter. He was also to check all the ancient scrolls of the past tens of thousands of years to search for Mo Su's origins and how he was sent to the barren lands of divine essence, as well as which true world he came from, and what heinous crime he had committed.